What if I told you that the very door you've been praying for is closer to opening than you think? Beloved of the Lord, in the mighty, matchless, and victorious name of Jesus Christ, we declare that every locked door is opening, every barrier is breaking, and every divine opportunity assigned to your life is being released today. This is not an ordinary morning. This is a prophetic moment where heaven is aligning circumstances in your favor and making a way where there seemed to be no way. Have you been praying for a breakthrough, waiting for an answer, or believing God for a door that only He can open? Tell me in the comments, what area of your life are you trusting God to move in today? The God we serve is the one who opens doors no man can shut and shuts doors no man can open. When His hand is upon your life, no opposition can stop your progress, no delay can cancel your destiny, and no obstacle can block your divine assignment. Today, we are coming into agreement with God's promises, expecting miracles, favor, restoration, and supernatural advancement. Where are you watching from today? I would love to stand in faith with you as we pray together. And if you believe that God is about to do something extraordinary in your life, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs encouragement this morning. As we enter this time of prayer, position your heart for expectation. Leave every worry, every fear, and every burden at the feet of Jesus. This Thursday morning, we are believing for open doors, divine connections, unexpected blessings, and breakthroughs that will leave no doubt that God has gone before you. Are you ready to receive what heaven has prepared for you today? Let's pray together and watch God move in a powerful way. Beloved, there is a powerful truth that can transform the way you see your future when God opens a door. No person, no obstacle, no delay, and no opposition has the authority to shut it. The God who created the heavens and the earth is not limited by human systems, economic conditions, negative reports, or closed opportunities. He is the sovereign King who holds the keys of destiny in His hands. Have you ever stood before a door that seemed impossible to open? Have you ever wondered if the breakthrough you have been praying for would ever come? Many people spend their lives knocking on doors that were never assigned to them, becoming discouraged when those doors remain closed. Yet God often uses closed doors as divine protection and open doors as divine direction. What if some of the disappointments you experienced were actually God's way of redirecting you toward something greater? Can you think of a situation that did not work out the way you wanted, but later proved to be a blessing? When God opens a door, He does not need permission from people to bless you. He does not need approval from your critics. He does not need cooperation from those who tried to limit your progress. His power is greater than every human opinion and stronger than every obstacle standing in your path. Have you been allowing someone's opinion to determine how far you can go? Have you been waiting for people to validate what God has already spoken over your life? Sometimes we become so focused on who is against us that we forget who is for us. The Lord is for you. Heaven is backing His purpose for your life. The same God who opened doors for countless people throughout history is still opening doors today. He is not limited by your past mistakes, your current challenges, or the circumstances surrounding you right now. What challenge are you facing at this moment that seems bigger than your ability? Do you believe God is able to intervene in that situation? There are seasons when it appears as though nothing is moving. You pray, you believe, you work hard, and yet the door remains closed. During those moments, it is easy to become discouraged. It is easy to question whether God hears your prayers. But delay does not mean denial. God's timing is perfect, and what He opens at the right moment often produces greater results than anything we could force open ourselves. Have you been struggling with impatience lately? Is there an area of your life where you need to trust God's timing more deeply? Many people underestimate the power of divine timing. They assume that because something has not happened yet, it will never happen. But God is always working behind the scenes. He is arranging circumstances, aligning relationships, removing obstacles, and preparing opportunities that you cannot yet see. While you are praying, He is positioning things in your favor. Can you remember a time when God surprised you with an answer that came at exactly the right moment? How did that experience strengthen your faith? The door God opens is often connected to purpose. It is not simply about comfort, success, or personal gain. It is about fulfilling the assignment He has placed upon your life. Every opportunity He provides carries the potential to move you closer to your destiny. That is why spiritual discernment is so important. Not every open door is a God door, but every God door will lead you toward His purpose. Have you been asking God for wisdom regarding the opportunities in front of you? Are there decisions you need clarity about today? Fear is one of the greatest enemies of open doors. Many people pray for opportunities, but become afraid when those opportunities finally arrive. They ask God for growth, but hesitate when growth requires faith. They ask for promotion, but become uncomfortable when responsibility increases. Yet faith requires movement. Faith requires trust. Has fear ever stopped you from pursuing an opportunity? What would you attempt if you knew God was walking beside you every step of the way? When God opens a door, He also provides the grace necessary to walk through it. You do not have to possess all the answers before taking the first step. You do not need perfect conditions before moving forward. The God who opens the door also equips you for the journey beyond it. His strength becomes available when you step out in obedience. Are you waiting until everything feels perfect before moving forward? Could God be inviting you to trust Him more deeply right now? One of the most powerful lessons you can learn is that God's favor can accomplish in moments what human effort alone cannot achieve in years. There are opportunities that no amount of networking could create, relationships that no strategy could arrange, and breakthroughs that no human power could manufacture. When God's hand moves, impossible situations begin to shift. Have you experienced unexpected favor in your life before? Can you identify a moment when you knew God's hand was working behind the scenes? There will always be voices attempting to convince you that your situation is hopeless. There will always be circumstances trying to persuade you to lower your expectations. Yet faith chooses to agree with God's promises rather than human limitations. Faith sees beyond the current reality and embraces what God has declared possible. What promise are you holding on to today? What area of your life requires you to believe beyond what you currently see? The enemy often attacks people who are standing near significant doors of opportunity. Opposition increases because breakthrough is approaching. Resistance intensifies because something valuable is on the other side. Do not interpret every battle as a sign that God has abandoned you. Sometimes the battle is evidence that you are closer than you realize. Have you been facing unusual resistance recently? Could it be possible that a major breakthrough is nearer than you think? God's open doors are not reserved for a select few. They are available to those who trust Him, seek Him, and remain faithful through every season. No background is too broken. No history is too complicated. No failure is too great for God's redeeming power. He specializes in opening doors that others declared permanently closed. Have you ever felt disqualified because of your past? What would change if you truly believed God's grace was greater than every mistake? Today, choose to lift your eyes beyond your circumstances. Refuse to measure your future by your current limitations. Refuse to define your possibilities by what others have said about you. The God who holds the keys of every door is still working on your behalf. He is still creating opportunities, making pathways, and orchestrating divine connections. Every promise He has spoken remains alive. Every purpose He has assigned remains intact. Every blessing He has prepared remains available. The door that God opens carries His authority, His favor, His provision, His wisdom, and His power. When He decides it is time, no force on earth can prevent what He has ordained for your life. What are you believing God to open for you in this season? Tell me in the comments. And as you declare it by faith, begin to expect God to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that you could ask, think, or imagine. Beloved, one of the greatest tactics used against people of faith is the creation of barriers designed to slow their progress and delays intended to weaken their confidence. Yet today, we must understand that every barrier standing between you and God's purpose can be moved by His power. Every delay that has attempted to frustrate your destiny is subject to the authority of God. What looks impossible to people is never impossible to Him. Have you been feeling like something has been blocking your progress lately? Is there an area of your life where you have been asking yourself, why does it seem like nothing is moving? Many people know what it feels like to pray, believe, work hard, and remain faithful, only to encounter obstacle after obstacle. You may have expected doors to open by now. You may have thought certain prayers would have been answered already. Yet instead of advancement, you have experienced resistance. Instead of acceleration, you have experienced waiting. Can you think of a situation where you expected a breakthrough but found yourself facing another challenge instead? How did that experience affect your faith? One of the enemy's goals is to convince you that delay means defeat. He wants you to assume that because something has not happened yet, it never will. He wants you to become discouraged and abandon the very promise that God intends to fulfill. But delay and denial are not the same thing. God's calendar is not controlled by human expectations. Have you ever looked back and realized that something happened at exactly the right time? Have you seen God work in ways that made sense only after the waiting season ended? Sometimes barriers appear in the form of financial challenges. You may have the vision but not the resources. You may have the dream but not the funding. You may know where God is leading you, yet the provision seems delayed. In those moments, it is important to remember that God is not limited by earthly economies. The one who owns everything is fully capable of supplying what is needed at the appointed time. Are you currently trusting God for financial breakthrough? What area of provision are you believing Him to release? For others, barriers appear through relationships. There may be misunderstandings, disappointments, betrayals, or conflicts that seem to stand in the way of progress. Sometimes people become obstacles because they are operating from fear, jealousy, insecurity, or misunderstanding. Yet God has the power to change hearts, create new opportunities, and connect you with the right people at the right moment. Have you ever had a relationship challenge that felt impossible to resolve? Did God eventually provide a solution you could not have imagined? There are also spiritual barriers that many people encounter. These are moments when you feel as though you are fighting invisible resistance. You pray, yet the burden remains heavy. You seek direction, yet clarity seems distant. You continue moving forward, yet everything feels more difficult than it should. These seasons require persistence and spiritual determination. Have you ever felt like you were facing resistance that could not be explained naturally? How did you respond during that season? The truth is that barriers often reveal strengths you never knew you possessed. Challenges have a way of developing perseverance, wisdom, patience, and spiritual maturity. While nobody enjoys difficulties, many of life's greatest lessons are learned while overcoming obstacles. The very barrier you wish would disappear may be teaching you something valuable for the future God has prepared. Can you identify a difficult season that ultimately made you stronger? What lesson did you gain from that experience? God never wastes a challenge. Even when situations appear confusing, He remains at work behind the scenes. While you are focused on the obstacle in front of you, He is developing your character, strengthening your faith, and preparing you for greater responsibility. The process may be uncomfortable, but the outcome often exceeds expectations. Have you noticed how some of your greatest growth came during difficult times rather than easy ones? What has God been teaching you recently? Many people become exhausted because they focus more on the barrier than on God's ability. The obstacle becomes larger in their minds than the God who created the universe. Yet faith shifts our attention. Faith acknowledges the challenge, but magnifies God's power. Faith recognizes the problem, but trusts the promise. What are you focusing on most right now? The size of your obstacle or the greatness of your God? How might your perspective change if you looked at the situation through the lens of faith? Another challenge many people face is the barrier of self-doubt. Sometimes the greatest obstacle is not external but internal. It is the voice that whispers, "You are not qualified." It is the fear that says, "You will fail." It is the insecurity that questions whether you are capable of fulfilling God's assignment. Yet God has never based his calling on human perfection. He calls people according to his purpose and equips them through his grace. Have you ever doubted your ability to accomplish something God placed on your heart? What would happen if you trusted his strength more than your own limitations? Fear has delayed countless dreams. Fear convinces people to stay where they are rather than step into what God has prepared. Fear creates imaginary barriers that become stronger than real ones. Yet courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward despite uncertainty. Courage says, "I trust God enough to take the next step." Is there a step of faith you have been postponing? What is one thing you know God has been encouraging you to do? There are moments when delays become frustrating because they last longer than expected. You may wonder why the answer has not arrived. You may question why the breakthrough seems distant. Yet some delays are actually periods of preparation. God often prepares people before he releases opportunities. He develops capacity before increasing responsibility. Have you ever received something later than you wanted, but realized you were far more prepared when it finally arrived? Looking back, can you see wisdom in the waiting? Imagine receiving a blessing before you had the maturity to manage it. Imagine stepping into an opportunity before you possessed the skills necessary to sustain it. Sometimes what feels like delay is actually divine preparation. God is ensuring that when the door opens, you are ready to walk through it successfully. Can you think of an area where God may be preparing you right now? What skills, habits, or attitudes might he be developing within you? One of the most powerful declarations you can make is that barriers will not define your future. Obstacles may exist, but they are temporary. Delays may occur, but they are not permanent. Challenges may arise, but they do not possess the authority to cancel God's purpose for your life. What God has spoken remains true regardless of current circumstances. Have you been allowing temporary challenges to shape your view of the future? What would happen if you began seeing obstacles as temporary instead of permanent? Every breakthrough story includes moments of resistance. Every testimony includes seasons of waiting. Every victory includes battles that had to be fought. The people who eventually experience extraordinary results are often the people who refused to quit when circumstances became difficult. They continued believing, continued praying, continued trusting, and continued moving forward. Have you considered how close you might be to your breakthrough? Could this be the very season where things begin to change? Even now, God is capable of removing barriers that seemed immovable. He can create opportunities where none existed. He can open doors that appeared permanently shut. He can make a path through situations that looked impossible. He can accelerate progress, restore lost time, and redeem seasons that felt wasted. The same power that has brought you this far is able to carry you through every obstacle, every delay, every challenge, and every resistance standing between you and the purpose he has prepared for your life. Beloved, there is something extraordinary that happens when the favor of God begins to operate in a person's life. Doors that once seemed impossible to enter suddenly begin to open. Opportunities that appeared out of reach become accessible. Circumstances that looked unfavorable start shifting in ways that cannot be fully explained by human effort alone. The favor of God has the ability to position you where your skills alone could never take you. Have you ever experienced a moment when something worked out far better than you expected? Can you remember a time when you knew God's hand was making a way for you? Many people spend years striving, struggling, and exhausting themselves trying to create opportunities. While hard work is important, there are moments when God's favor accomplishes more in a short season than human effort could achieve in many years. Favor is not a substitute for diligence, but it is a divine advantage that causes your efforts to produce greater results. Have you been praying for God to open new opportunities in your life? What area are you believing Him to touch right now? The favor of God is not limited to one area of life. It can touch your family, your career, your business, your ministry, your education, your relationships, and your finances. Wherever God's favor rests, unusual opportunities begin to emerge. People who never noticed you before may suddenly recognize your value. Situations that once appeared stagnant may suddenly begin moving forward. Can you think of an area where you need God's favor today? What breakthrough would make the greatest difference in your life right now? One of the challenges many people face is believing they are worthy of God's favor.